But that jamboree happening right now, you see it there on your screen, in that place is particularly chilling because in 1939, more than 20,000 supporters of a different fascist leader, Adolf Hitler, packed the garden for a so-called pro-America rally.
The Madison Square Garden rally. Was it a contemporary political event to drive support before an election? Or was it a harking back to fascism, beyond nationalism, Nazism? Was it an attempt to recreate a 1939 America First style rally in which people literally wore swastikas? And if it was, would you see the Star of David there? And would Donald Trump have recently met with imams and other leaders from the Muslim community? I'm not saying that political leaders aren't capable of making astute choices in order to mask true intentions. I believe that's actually de rigueur and the modus operandi of most political movements in the world today. But is Donald Trump really the next Hitler? Or do the inept globalists that currently run America and have been since the election of Joe Biden, and perhaps for a lot longer than that, require a truly demonic opponent in order to mask their own Luciferian intentions? Let's get into this story about Madison Square Gardens and MSNBC once again finding new ways to compare. You know that Shakespeare sonnet, shall I compare thee to a summer's day, thou art more lovely? Shall I compare you to Adolf Hitler? Let me count the ways. Well, I don't know. Hitler, he had a penis.
But that jamboree happening right now, you see it there on your screen, in that place is particularly chilling because in 1939, more than 20,000 supporters of a different fascist leader, Adolf Hitler, packed the garden for a so-called pro-America rally. A rally where speakers voiced anti-Semitic rhetoric from a stage draped with Nazi banners. When a Jewish protester rushed the stage, the Associated Press reported, quote, instantly, a dozen or more stormtroopers set upon him, knocking him down and beating him as he held his head in his arms. Most of his clothing was torn from his body.
That's really funny because that is bad that happened, but that's not like Madison Square Garden last night. That's what happened then at that rally. That was definitely bad. I'm sure there are lots of people that support Trump and support MAGA that would say, I don't think that the Jewish guy that rushed the stage in 1939 should have been stripped near naked and attacked by stormtroopers. In fact, the reason that the United States joined the war, as well as there would have been certainly territorial and economic reasons, was at least in part to defend the threatened Jews then from genocide. That's why genocide in any form continues to, of course, be bad.
Later, he was booked for disorderly conduct. Now, against that backdrop of history, Donald Trump.
Again, now, I want you to give you that backdrop. Something anti-Semitic happened. Now, Donald Trump. Bill Clinton's done rallies at Madison Square Garden. That's the venue. Like, you still have things happen at Brandenburg Gate in Germany. We've just heard this. Hitler was actually Chancellor of Germany. So we're closing down all of Germany. Hitler drove a Mercedes. We cannot have Mercedes anywhere. Adolf Hitler used to drink Fanta. We cannot have Fanta available anymore for anybody. Hitler was a vegetarian. Everyone must continually eat meat. Adolf Hitler was an artist, and I once saw Donald Trump looking at a painting. So do you see maybe what he's trying? He's trying to look at the painting and imagine it in a mind, though. Hitler, though. So maybe against that backdrop, will you please vote for Kamala Harris, even though plainly she is an inept hollow cipher of the interests of globalism, otherwise anti-Semite.
The man who has threatened to use the military against opponents he calls enemies from within, who has threatened to use the troops.
Just now, a law's been passed in your country allowing the use of lethal force at protests. You know that after January 6th, they increased the funding to the Capitol Police in Washington. You know that the level of authoritarianism you experienced in your country during the pandemic period. And right now, another $50 billion has been given by the G7 to fund the ongoing Ukraine-Russia war, where the Azov battalion fight on behalf of the Ukraine, and they are literally literal Nazis, and 20 billion of that is your taxpayer dollars, and a significant amount of that will end up in the hands of corporatists. And curiously and ironically, one of the people involved in sanctioning that is a Republican politician. So it is pretty complicated, I'll grant you that. But when it comes to tyranny, when it comes to subjects like genocide and the various ways that that could be expressed, you've got to be very, very careful about the people that are masking themselves in liberalism and compassion, because they are likely the biggest threat.
To quell what he says are lawless cities and to use those troops to carry out mass deportations of immigrants is once again turning Madison Square Garden into a staging ground for extremism.
Oh my God, it's desperate. Let's have a look at some of the other things that happened at Madison Square Garden. Firstly, I want to see Bobby Kennedy giving a speech there. Now, loads of you are 2016 MAGA. Loads of you have loved Trump from the minute he come down the golden escalator. Loads of you just love Trump as a guy. A lot of you are like kind of skeptical, confused about Donald Trump. I'm sure there's a variety of opinions on the character and nature of Donald Trump. Many people will be fascinated that an independent figure like Bobby Kennedy, lifelong affiliated with the Democratic Party, is now part of the MAGA movement. And I would invite former liberal friends of mine to ponder what is the relationship between Bobby Kennedy would be a nominee for the Democratic Party if the Democratic Party would afford an independent candidate, and I mean independent-minded in this sense, to arise within their ranks. They have eschewed that possibility. They want heritage and legacy politicians. Clintons, Obamas. They didn't want Bernie Sanders, too radical. What they want are people that are malleable and that they can control. Now, Bobby Kennedy, you know Bobby Kennedy, that dude's like an environmentalist lawyer. He stands up to Big Pharma. He'll stand up to Big Food. One of my big questions is, in the event of a MAGA and Trump victory in November, is Bobby Kennedy going to be allowed to stand up against the FDA and stand up against Pfizer? Is he going to be able to stand up against Big Food? Is he going to be able to curtail the controls that are the controls that agriculture have over your land and over your farming? Is he going to be able to, obviously along with Trump, who's going to be the president, and it's not part of his purview to intervene in geopolitical and military matters, but will the mindset of opposing corporatism and globalism be able to prevail? Let me know in the comments and chat what you think about that. There's an election coming. Did you know? Do you not watch the news? It's on November the 5th. Did you know that 30% of registered voters don't turn out to vote, and 23% of people under 30 voted in the last election? That means what? 77% didn't vote. That's crazy. This website, sendthevote.org/brand, makes registering to vote easy. It's non-partisan. That means they don't care who you vote for. Obviously, you can tell from the platform that this is being advertised on that these people care, but this is open to anyone. Go to sendthevote.org/brand and register to vote at this crucial, important, forthcoming election. Head over to sendthevote.org/brand and they'll help you sign up, register, and check that you're all set. You can also do this by text if you can't. I can't do all those forward.inc.org stuff. I'm not doing that. You can also text brand to 33022 to learn more. That's BRAND to 33022. Don't be another no-show statistic. Vote in this election for whoever you want to vote for. Here is Bobby Kennedy saying he didn't leave the Democrat Party left me.
And I say, I didn't leave the Democratic Party left me. This is not the party anymore of Martin Luther King, of Robert Kennedy, of John Kennedy. That was the party of peace. It was the party of constitutional rights, of civil rights, of freedom of speech. It was the party that wanted to protect and nurture the middle class. It was the party that stood up to censorship, to surveillance, that stood up to the CIA, to the military-industrial complex. And it was the party that wanted to protect public health. It was the party that believed in voting rights and fought for the right of every American to vote for the person of their choice. Today's Democratic Party is the party of war. It's the party of the CIA. You had Kamala Harris giving a speech at the Democratic Convention that was written by neocons, that was belligerent, pugnacious, that talked about the domination of the world by the United States.
Actually, do you know what I want to do? This is an open invitation to any people that are thinking of voting for Kamala Harris and the Democrats. What do you make of Bobby Kennedy's position and inclusion in this movement? How do you reconcile the rhetoric of Kamala Harris and the celebrities that endorse her with the ongoing wars that are being supported by American taxpayer dollars across the world right now? Why is Kamala Harris not saying, I will use the office of president to ensure that peace is brought about in these various regional wars that have the potential to escalate to a global war? I will use the office of president to oppose the corporations that are currently clandestine operators when it comes to both national and global policy making. I will ensure the deconstruction of the deep state so that you, the American people, have maximum individual sovereignty, maximum community governance. We will not continually be looking for ways to impair, incur, control your freedom and authority. Why don't you go on Joe Rogan, Kamala Harris, and say just that? Because that will be difficult to defy. That will be difficult to argue with. And let me answer my own rhetorical question. The reason Kamala Harris cannot do that is because Kamala Harris, whether she knows it or not, is totally dependent on globalist and corporatist power. Absolutely and totally. Now, I'm not saying that that is a problem that is exclusively on one side of the political aisle. There's no doubt that the Republican Party must get donations from big energy and big tech and billionaires, and that Elon Musk is the richest man in the world, isn't he? And he's going to have some pretty powerful corporate interests. But when it comes to the figure of Elon Musk, he did open up X. We do know what was going on in Twitter, FBI, CIA, under Biden, under Kamala Harris. So the reason people are cynical and skeptical about Kamala Harris is because there's good reason to be. And the people that aren't, the people that are still basically saying, hold your nose and vote for this flavor of corruption, are you not noticing that Bobby Kennedy, a couple of years ago, I was scared to have him on my show. I was like, whoa, this guy's been a bit vocal on the subject of vaccines. This guy's been a bit out there with his criticisms of Anthony Fauci. This guy's took on in powerful corporate interests in agriculture and in pharma. Are you sure, Russell, were you brave enough to ally yourself to him? Well, man, the world has changed. The world's changing fast. And my own particular position as a Christian is mounted on the fact that no material thing is going to save any of us. Only God will save us. And what I mean by God, is surrender to Jesus Christ. But what you could possibly interpret that as, if you aren't down with Jesus just yet, is what is your highest principle? Is the highest possible principle having the power to pray, to be able to sacrifice yourself for something greater than you? Something greater than you. That's what I'm praying for. That's what I'm praying for. Now, which direction do you think that Kamala Harris wants to take the country in? Do you think that ultimately you're going to end up with more globalism, more corporatism, great global leviathans whose tentacles lash the planet with corrupt and corporate power? Or do you think your individual freedom might be served? And if you see Michelle Obama plainly and dishonestly claiming that Kamala Harris has taken on her fiercest opponents, that's simply not true. She has taken interview after interview with softball punters like your man Anderson Cooper, and has not fared well in even those environments. And the reason for that is a simple one, because within there is the concealment of an agenda that can't ever be explicitly expressed. And also, I would say, as well as that agenda, I don't know how much someone like Kamala Harris would be privy to the sort of deep machinations of globalism, there is the sense that I don't really know what the bloody hell to say in response to some of these questions. I mean, you know, anyone who watches that can see it in real time.
Through our weapons of war, the Harris campaign is very proud that it received the endorsement of 50 former CIA agents and officers, and of John Bolton, and of Dick Cheney. These are the people that gave us the war in Iraq, the worst foreign policy catastrophe that's ever happened to this country. These are the people that gave us the Patriot Act, that launched the surveillance state, These are the people that are trying to undermine voting rights in this country by weaponizing the federal agencies against political candidates, including me and Donald Trump and all other political candidates that can't win an election. And instead of bringing in a candidate who wins the primaries, abolish the primaries, and then pick two candidates, anointed them without receiving votes. We don't even know how Kamala Harris received the nomination.
Extraordinary, and that doesn't seem like the kind of free speech and open democracy that that party claims to represent and claims to bring in were they to be granted another 4 years, because let's remember they're in office right now. And if Donald Trump is the Hitlerian, authoritarian despot that they claim, then why is he actively seeking the endorsement of imams and members of the Muslim community? I suppose whatever your position is on the variety of faiths, the Abrahamic and the non-Abrahamic faiths, surely you recognize that what we ought aim for is a vision, at least, of unity, because the alternative to unity is tyranny. There is voluntary surrender and involuntary surrender. Let's have a look at this story about Trump and his recent endorsements from imams, mayors, and other Muslim community leaders.
Good afternoon, Michiganders. As the president said, we just had a positive meeting with President Trump. We as Muslims stand with President Trump because he promises peace. He promises peace, not war. We are supporting Donald Trump because he promised to end war in the Middle East and Ukraine. The bloodshed has to stop all over the world, and I think this man can make that happen. I personally believe that God saved his life twice for a reason.
That's pretty good stuff there. A president for peace. Now, can those claims be made by supporters of the Democratic Party, or do you believe that they are more deeply controlled, let me know in the comments and chat, by globalist powers, and let's call it what it is, the military-industrial complex? And will Donald Trump in office be able to oppose the likes of Raytheon, Northrop Grumman, Lockheed Martin, those great, powerful and extraordinary entities that exist under the general umbrellas of the BlackRocks and the Vanguards, and who knows what powers lie even beyond them? And are any of us safe from the influence of those powers, no matter what institution or system we were to politically advocate for?
Hey, thanks for watching. If you want to see more uncensored content where free speech can flourish, join our live stream. Click the link right here to watch the next video if you want to, or become a member of a growing movement. Download the Rumble app and you'll be informed every time we make a new piece of content. Stay free.